I had one female relative who died of just great family. How are you? I hear you. Not put in front of the other.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the West Mifflin Area School District Work Session meeting. Is held in the West Mifflin Area Middle School Auditorium, 81 Commonwealth Avenue, West Mifflin, PA 15122. Meeting begins at 6:02 p.m. Opening exercises, pledge the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ahern.
Here.
Senzo.
Here.
Donahoe.
Here.
Engler.
Here.
Mattis.
Here.
Squires.
Here.
Uhas.
Here.
Astounding.
Here.
And Blazing.
Here. Two presentations. Dr. Solomon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. At the time, we have one presentation for this evening. Mr. Souls and Ms. Silvas have been working with Paul Cassidy and Teal Bruner, who are here this evening. They're representatives from Noah's Ark, and they're here to describe and discuss a potential new before and after school program for the district. Mr. Cassidy, would you please come up to the podium?
Board members, you have the folder from Mr. Cassidy that has his information in the presentation, as well as the presentation will be going on behind you as Mr. Cassidy speaks.
Well, good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak today. So the presentation that you guys have in file folder in front of you is kind of two parts. Part number one is more of a bullet point presentation of some of the key components of what the before and after school program would look like here in West Mifflin. And then also just maybe what you have up on the screen there is just a flyer, maybe a sample flyer that would be sent out to the parents. Obviously, we could tweak it accordingly, but that would be something that maybe each parent would get. So you guys all have copies of those in front of you. The way I did the proposal is kind of three phases. Phase one are the most important highlights of getting up and running. Phase two would be not only before and after school care, but also a summer camp. And then phase three, if the need was great, we would look at doing a before and after school program at each building within the district rather than just at one location and bus those kids there. So as far as a background, I am the executive director and president and owner of Noah's Ark. I was born and raised in West Mifflin, have been at Noah's Ark for 23 years. We run a program for infants up through school-age kids. So we've had a before and after school program for K through 5th grade at Noah's Ark since we started back in 1998. As far as my background, again, graduate of West Mifflin, know the district pretty well, and have been running the program there, I would say rather successfully for those number of years. I did want to introduce our school age director, Ms. Teal. If she wants to come up, she was going to mention something just a little bit about her background.
Hi, I know most of you. I've been with Paul for 2 years now. Before that, I was in the school district with the special ed department. I still am subbing. My children go to school here. I have a very good reputation with all the teachers. I'm sorry, I know I'm getting so I talk. Very good reputation with the teachers and the parents. I have been Paul's summer director all last year. This year is my first year with him as a school director of his program, but it seems to be going very well. Good feedback from parents, good feedback from the kids. All of my staff seem to be doing very well, and it keeps growing every day. And we thought with COVID it would not, so we're actually really happy with this. I look forward to this adventure. I've been really excited about it, learning everything that I can. I'm really good at organizing, so that helps. I'm going to hand it back to Paul, because this is his presentation now.
So just to kind of discuss briefly, myself and the leadership of West Midland have been discussing briefly over the last few months about what a before and after school program would look like in the district. It would basically be a extended day before school, after school, for kindergarten through 5th grade. We would be looking at utilizing one of the buildings, mainly the middle school, access to the cafeteria, gymnasium, classrooms, things of that nature. We would offer before school, we would offer breakfast, care, and get them on the bus. If they were going to Claire Barton or Homeville, they could go straight, stay in the middle school if they were, older child. As far as after school, similarly, they would get bused back to the middle school, and then we would offer activities, not only homework tutoring, but also activities in the gymnasium, things of that nature, as far as until about 6 o'clock. So our hours currently are 6:30. The buses come to Noah's Ark, provided by the district, take them to the individual schools, Homeville, Middle School, and Claire Barton. And then on the return trip, they bring them back, providing transportation from West Midland back to Noah's Ark. And in lieu of doing the Noah's Ark, they would just do it right at middle school. We would provide the staffing, things of that nature. As far as what we would need, possibly some on-site storage for supplies, paperwork, possibly we had discussed about providing breakfast, which you guys already do, make that part of the program, along with snack. And then some of the other needs are listed. You guys are intelligent people. I don't need to read verbatim what that looks like. But as far as my initial thoughts, we would be looking at a soft opening for the end of this school year. We have about 65 kids total enrolled at Noah's Ark with our school age programs, K through 5th. We average between 30 and 40 kids before and after school. We will be looking at bringing those kids here towards the end of the school year, because ideally we want to show the parents in the community that this is a real opportunity and something that's really happening rather than just hearsay. So we would be looking at a soft opening and then full implementation for the 2022-2023 school year. Obviously, over the summer, we would blast the parents with information as far as needs, and those things would be handled by me, enrollment, so on and so forth. The initial steps as far as what it would take to open up a facility have already started, very preliminary. Both myself and Teal took an orientation class. Even though that I have been the owner at Noah's Ark for 23 years, I still had to, I wasn't grandfathered in on what a new facility looked like, so we had both had to take an orientation class. It was a couple weeks ago. We have certificates. And then from there, we would take those certificates upon approval by the board and the leadership. We would take those certificates. We would present an application to the state, and then the state would, that application is lengthy, but nothing that's overly hard, and then we would present that to them. Because we're located in a school building, mainly they're looking for the paperwork side of it, because again, this would be located in a school building. The inspection from a school building standpoint is already taken care of with you guys being Department of Education. There's not a whole lot of background that you guys need, or we need for that matter. It would be more paperwork, me submitting my paperwork, my qualifications, staff qualifications, things of that nature. So that's really the gist. As far as the gist of the presentation, and there's a few more items I wanted to kind of mention. We take both private and funded children. So private would be a per hour, per day rate, and then we also take children that are funded through the state through a program called CCIS or ELRC, which is a state ran organization that helps parents, lower income families. And what they do is, if the funding is through them, they apply through them. We just happen to take that funding and they issue a copay to the parent that's paid to me, and then the state picks up the rest, paid to me once a month. So we take both, and we have a cross section. I would say probably it's about 50-50 in our school age program. For our current enrollment, we run about half private and half funded. And then currently we do offer a snack and homework tutoring. So a lot of the things that I'm talking about aren't things that would be much different. Obviously, we would want to get involved with possibly talking with the teachers and finding out what we can do to assist in the homework help rather than just kind of going through it blind. So being in the district and having those relationships obviously would help tremendously. Being a West Mifflin graduate, honestly, I know a lot of the teachers. And so that being said, it's not uncommon to reach out to them personally and say, hey, I've got a couple kids that are struggling. Ms. Teal's relationship as a paraprofessional within the district also gives her the opportunity to know most of the parents on a personal basis, so we can do that as well. So those are things that we do already, but I think that we would be able to do it even more effectively in the district itself, within the building. So as far as possible names, Noah's Ark is a nonprofit. We would be applying for a DBA, doing business as something. So whether it would be NA Extended Day at West Mifflin, something like that, and then that DBA would fall under the umbrella of the nonprofit. So that's how we would handle the separation between what Noah's Ark Christian Child Care looks like as far as a daycare / school age program to what that looks like just in a West Mifflin building. So, those are, I'm not married to any of those. So any names that you guys would, as far as suggestions or, even what you think might sound good, I would be open to. So, any questions, I mean, more than happy to answer here, after, in writing, email, come back, any of the above.
Do you have a number of children? I know currently there's a waiting list normally to get into Noah's Ark. Is there a number that you're looking at as to a cutoff, or how many that you're hoping to get in the program before or after?
So it's a good question. To be honest with you, mainly the reason why we have a waiting list is space. So at Noah's Ark, we have 12,000 square foot of space. It's a relatively larger center. We have 4 acres of land. Our first floors are even through pre-K, and then our school age program is on our second floor. So primarily what happens is we have to cut that off just based on staffing. Or I shouldn't say that, just based on space. If we were able to garden more space, aka the school building, we would be able to implement some more staffing and then also be able to add kids quarterly. There is no limitation as long as you meet the specific ratios that are required. There are no limitations on number of kids. So ideally, one of the reasons why I put in the proposal as a soft opening is, we want the parents to know that this is real and not just because parents typically are making those arrangements at the beginning of the summer or even earlier. If you wait until the end of the school year, end of the summer, we might already have missed the boat. And so one of the things that we were looking at is possibly a soft opening where we would have everything in place. We would just, bring our own kids over that are already enrolled at West Mifflin, those 30 to 35, 40 kids a day, and then get people buzzing, keep talking about it and say, well, this is for the new school year. Yes, I'm definitely interested. And then we would start that process. So I would probably have a minimum number that I would need to do the program. But the maximum number would be more or less staffing. And so I can't sit here today and tell you what that looks like. But obviously with being in a facility that would have had unlimited numbers, once we grew, we would get some more staffing and then we would hope to be able to accommodate more kids.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to clarify, this would just be open to West Mifflin students, is that correct?
So for during the school year, yes. So obviously we haven't talked about those specifics, but ideally that's what I would assume. We would continue offering a smaller version of what we do now at Noah's Ark for the A few families that either attend, we do have some families that attend Sioux Valley, and they provide their own transportation because unfortunately their district doesn't have busing. So they provide their own transportation to Noah's Ark at the end of each day. We do have some West Mifflin kids that attend private school. So those are things that we would have to worry about, talk about, what the, what you guys decided as far as, yes, that's okay, or B, would that even fit into the schedule? Because, if we've only had a few, we can still accommodate those kids at our current facility. So they would just give us like they do normally. So right now we have a few kids at St. Therese, Wilson, and then I think right now those are the only 2 private schools. But those kids are West Mifflin kids. They just choose to go to the private schools. Now, summer may be something a little bit different. Obviously, we would give priority to West Mifflin kids, but that's something that we could discuss. I haven't gotten that far yet.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
The students you have now in Noah's Ark, who are West Mifflin students, they would transition to this program at the middle school, is kind of the plan.
Yeah,
correct?
yes,
And I
yes.
think what you said before, there's like 30 or 40 in the morning, 30 or 40 in the afternoon, and in the evening. And those are those West Mifflin students?
Yeah, primarily right now, I think we have only a handful of 2 or 3 Still Valley kids and 1 or 2 private school kids. The rest are West Mifflin kids.
Got it.
And when I say West Mifflin, that would be all encompassing Claire Barton Middle School.
Sure. West Mifflin students.
Yes, yeah.
Student population.
Yeah.
Are there any other districts that you do this with, or this was the first?
This would be the first.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just going back to what Gina was asking, and this is maybe more specific, is what's your minimum number? Like, do you, that 30 or 40, you're kind of counting that number already? It would just be the change in drop-off location, I'm assuming would be the middle school instead of the current location, right?
Yeah, so I
Like,
think.
do you want to grow? Like, do you need to stay at 30 if it goes below 30? Like,
With all due respect, yes, I'd love to grow. That's one of the reasons why I think I'm here, because primarily what happens is most of those parents are calling the school, whether it's the school secretary or the principal or whoever, and saying, hey, I need this. And typically what they do now is they say, okay, call Paul over at Noah's Ark. And typically we have a feeder program with our pre-K program. So our pre-K kids go off to kindergarten. We have 20 kids, half of them are usually West Mifflin kids, maybe even a little bit more, and then they roll right into kindergarten. So we lose a couple on the back end from 5th grade off to 6th grade. Kindergarten goes, pre-K goes up to kindergarten, and so sometimes it's difficult to add a whole lot more just based on the space that we already have and what our facility is able to accommodate at this point. So I guess the answer is twofold. Yes, we love to, we love to grow and be able to accommodate additional kids within the district. I guess I'm not prepared to answer that question as far as what the minimum number would be.
Right.
Because I don't know what, if this proposal, if you're like, yes, this proposal is good,
Right.
then I would be able to, within a short period of time, give you what that minimum number. And obviously, within the first year or two, the minimum number goes out the window because you're just growing your program. You're just trying to figure out, what the needs are. Maybe we missed the boat on what the needs are, and maybe we expand to be a little bit older, and then we can offer some activities and things from a 6th and 7th grade standpoint that aren't quite ready to go home yet. So we add numbers there, where we're, how we present it, what we offer, getting the word out. Those are all going to take a little bit of time. So I'm not prepared to say, that minimum number is 30, 35 right now. But I would assume over time, if the need isn't quite there, then we can reevaluate whether this is, something that we want to both continue.
And then, just because I'm not real familiar, I apologize. So today, the students who are at Noah's Ark today that are West Mifflin, they get bused from there to here?
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically our hours right now are 6:30 to 6, Monday through Friday. Parents can drop them off as early as 6:30, all the way up until about 8:15, 8:30 when the bus comes. So we coordinate with the bus garage, give them the numbers, get the log, who the roster each around August of every year. And we send that over, and then the buses come, and basically Noah's Ark is a bus stop. Just like any other bus stop at a local home or community or development or whatever. So those buses come, pick them up, so the middle school, Homeville, and Claire Barton, come take them to the school. And then on the flip side, it's the exact same thing, just in reverse. So they take them from school and then they start busing them back to Noah's Ark as a bus stop. And then currently we already accommodate to our delays, early dismissals. You know, even for when the school was closed during the pandemic, we offered a program for remote learning. So we pretty much handle everything and anything that the school throws at us, regardless for and/or the state for that matter. And so whatever that looks like, we try to accommodate accordingly.
Okay. And then, maybe that, I don't know. But then I'm assuming like you're gonna have to replicate whatever facilities you have where you're at today would be replicated here. And we'd have to allot for some space for that, or like convert, have a changeover in the morning with the cafeteria or whatever it is. And we will also have older kids here too. So I think if I was a parent, I was dropping my child off at the middle school, but they're only in kindergarten. I want to have some sense of like they're going to be, segregated away from any older kids, or monitored and secure and have dedicated facilities. So do you have any thoughts on have you guys talked about that at all?
So we do that already. So we have K through 5th at our own place. And so we have a larger area that's about 5,000 square foot of space, one big area. And then we have a kitchen area for meals and small group. And then also a back room for homework tutoring and things like that. And then the way we place those kids in groups and what they allow, what group they're in, we already do that. So that's not uncommon for us, as far as obviously the school would give us even a greater ability to do those things, because whether we rotate certain groups inside the gym where they would be kindergarten through second grade in the gym while the older kids are doing homework and vice versa. So obviously with the school and having access to some a little bit more, obviously more space and more block areas, it would be a significantly even easier for us to do, which is something we already do now.
And if you guys put some thoughts in it. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Dahan.
Have you had any trouble with staff in the facility in the last 2 years?
So right now, we've been really blessed, to be honest with you. We have a coordination, we have contacts with the CCAC, so we have a student at the CCAC that's going to school for childcare. So, with being in this industry for 23 years, you just make a lot of contacts. So the head of CCAC is not only a friend of mine, but also a parent that used to come bring her boys to the center. So we have advertisements within the CCAC program, the child development program, that we're able to pull some. The challenge part of being in a school building versus where we're at is we have 25, 30 staff currently. So if we are running short on staff for an afternoon program, whatever, we can just pull somebody from our, pre-K group to stay or things like that. So I understand that would be a challenge, and not only a challenge, but also we will be overstaffed every day to be able to accommodate what that looks like. So right now, we've been really one of the fortunate ones that, to be honest with you, we've been pretty successful keeping our staff. To be honest with you, we only need, right now with the number of kids we need 3 staff. We actually added a 4th just because it made things easier. So we'll always look to add, talented people, quality people, regardless of whether we need them or not. So doing that, we've been able to be successful during these lead times.
You mentioned about homework help and tutoring, and I love that. Would you be open to offering some educational enrichment activities and possibly collaborating with teachers or with the district to offer things like that? But especially during the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the benefits of having Teal on board is, given her background within the district, working within the district for the last 4 or 5 years, she was able to reach out recently, a month or so ago, when they were talking about possibly some, hubbub about remote learning, getting back into with some of the staff shortages and all day remote. Within a day, she had everybody's email, what their passwords are, what those all day activities would look like. So we've got some relationships already built where we'd be able to do that very seamlessly.
Fantastic.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Cassidy, thank you very much. Mr. President, that concludes the presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. 3 addendum items. This is for next week, correct? Correct. Hearing the citizens is for next week in our regular meeting. New information items.
Mr. President, I will have something on for next week, and I'll just share it with those here who are watching online. Next month's meeting will be held at the Borough Building in our administrative offices. There's a school play going, or musical going on at the high school, and they're going to need all the mics and everything for that. So we will be meeting back at our old location for the month of March.
How do we do that? How do we do that moving forward?
Well, that's something that we can talk about, because one of the things we do have advertised is the meeting schedule. We don't have a place, but we will have to make a decision here shortly, so I can advertise the meeting dates and the location.
Thank you, Joe. That's the March meetings, March regular meeting.
This,
Both meetings.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is that there's no official action that needs to be taken for us to make that switch?
I just need to, I'm gonna have to advertise in the paper that the location has changed for March, if we wanted to switch.
No,
it.
I'm saying moving forward, like if we just stay there.
The only action it would take is to advertise that the meeting location has changed. That's what we did last year.
I think after those.
The board members have to make a recommendation.
We don't have to take an official vote on the floor. That's what I'm asking. Change the meeting location permanently back to the borough building, or do we?
That wouldn't require a meeting vote, but what would require the vote is the advertisement, as Joe said, because then you're spending money.
What do you want to vote on? Is that what you're saying? Starting in March to go back to the administration building? We can vote on it right now, right? Can we?
Well, we could wait till, we could put on the agenda for next month or next week.
Put on for next week?
I just thought you said that it did not need an official action.
Well, I think
So why can't
we
we
need
just
to agree.
Yes, so we can have that conversation tonight after.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not executive session.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, it sounds like we should talk about it. We should have a motion no, it doesn't need to be on the agenda, then, right? Because it's not something, it's just something we have to decide.
It'll be on the agenda as we will advertise in the paper,
Moving.
since we are spending money. So it will show up on the agenda,
If we change.
yes.
That's all I have.
6, board of directors, Mr. Asper.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, for the board's consideration for next week. Under 6A, executive session, we did have 3, which are properly noted that will need to be approved. Under B, minutes, we have to approve the monthly minutes for January. Under C, policy updates, we will be having a second reading and adoption of the listed policies. Under D, we do have the advertised schedule, the dates set that we will approve, and we will list a location in that approval for next year. And that whole section will be advertised as it is every year in the paper, usually in March or April. Under E, we have resolution 2022-03. This is the resolution for the furlough of professional staff, similar to what we had done last year. And that's all for section 6. I have nothing under 7, finance at this time. There's nothing under 8, purchasing and contracting. Under 9, financial reports, we do have the secretary of receipts, student activities, the treasurer's report, the refund subtracted from expenditures, and the tax collector reports for January. Is there any questions? Under 10, invoices and bills payable, at this time we have 4 bills, 3 from our solicitor, which are noted, and D is from the Liberty Mutual Insurance Company, and that's for our Whitaker tax collector. It's a 4-year bond. We have the bills, P card, cash disbursements, and POs that will need approved. Are there any questions about any of that?
I would like to just say, I brought it up in the past that the bills from Mr. Mather's office be sent in a timely fashion, and I'm requesting that again, not for 5 months, maybe 3. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I did check on that, Ms. Costello, and what happened was obviously we didn't have a meeting in December, and we got, there wasn't much on the middle school until late September.
If I may, President,
Mr. Madden?
we have been sending those on a quarterly basis. They got sent in January. It was after the cutoff date, but they were here in January. We send those quarterly. I think, and I'll explain later, after next month, we will send them monthly with our regular bill. There were some reasons that we did that I will explain in executive session because of other litigation matters. I think the board was aware of why I was doing that previously, but I will explain it again this evening for some of the new board members that may have not been aware. But there was clearly a reason for that. I know there was a question on a few of the bills, and we'll answer those in executive session as well, due to that it was on litigation matters, and I think it could affect our litigation status.
Thank you.
Is that all, Jeff?
That is it.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Well, it's actually just a point of order about policy 006. We had talked about that Annie is trying to order the meeting to plan for it. Right now it's blank.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. That's why we did the.
Exactly.
The order of the meeting is listed in policy 006. And I believe during the policy committee meeting, Mr. Woods mentioned Dr. Solomon talked about listing out the order. All we need to say is first, pledge allegiance, second, hearing the citizens, you know, the order of the building meetings, but right now the policy is blank, so I was wondering if we could get that filled in.
Well,
Someone explain, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble understanding what you're saying, and
So the policy that we're voting on next week lists out, as part of what the policy says is what happens during the meetings. And so we need to say, the first thing that happens is we have a hearing of the citizens, the second thing that happens is we go through when we talk about superintendent's report, everything would go through in order to meet.
Mr. Squires, correct, when we had a policy committee meeting, we discussed that, and when we get the PSBA policies, there are certain areas we have to make elections, and we went over those. And that section, what I think we discussed was, we'll just put our normal format of our agenda with the headings in there.
Right.
So that, that would be appropriate. So we did discuss that at policy committee.
Right.
we'll do that as in the past. Is that fine?
That's fine, I mean, you need to put in, right, sure. Just as long as it's not big blanks on the policy. 006, order of business.
It's not on the trip, the draft.
meeting such.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I looked at that. Okay. Sorry. Anything else? 11, district operations,
We have no content under there, Mr. President.
superintendent's report.
Superintendent's report, you will see items 1, 2, and 3, and 4 will outline the student activities, student fundraising activities, the buildings and grounds facility use, as well as conferences. And they are on the agenda as we discussed.
Personnel,
Personnel, we will do next week during the regular meeting.
no uncertified person.
Same personnel will be handled at the regular working meeting.
And athletic personnel.
Same as well.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we get a home school visitor report that we didn't see one? It says as presented, but I didn't see it.
I will check on that.
If it's not in there, we haven't received it yet, but you will have it by next week.
That concludes my portion, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Souls. Board President's correspondence, there have been none. Executive session discussion, executive session will be held after this. Committee reports.
Yes, I'll ask Mrs. Wells if she'd like to give a Village of Brown report, but the only thing I do have on the agenda is we did confirm Mr. Zidek's start date will be April 4th. Mrs. Wells, anything to report?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Dave McLean, went over to Humville today and looked at the wall. That was the first time he's been over there to look at it since we did receive a report from Morale, and then I can get that to you. But they're basically saying that the cracks are normal. That there's no gaps or anything in that. They're just hairline cracks, and we're going to watch it. We do have a warranty period, and he explained it in this document that they sent to me. So I will get that to you guys. And that's it. And I'm just getting some stuff ready for Mr. Zidek to start, so I'm getting everything organized.
Anything else, Mr. Wells?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Under finance, we have two items. The furlough resolution we will be doing for the professional staff will go under declining enrollment this year. Our enrollment right now in the brick and mortar is, I believe it's 2278. That's K through 12. And then if Mr. Esper, you want to give any update on the budget and where we're at?
And I did confirm with Mrs. DeClaire today that we will be losing 44 seniors from Duquesne, which will not be backfilled, if you would. So that enrollment will drop by at least that next year. The update on the budget is there was a meeting, Ashland had a meeting, and they're anticipating an 8% increase in healthcare. When I was hired in 2019, they were talking about a 10% increase. That did not actually happen. I believe it was 3%. So I'm hopeful that they won't actually raise the rates that much, but obviously that'll have an impact on the budget, and that's all I have.
Any questions?
Can you explain one thing? I just maybe didn't hear it. The seniors, those seniors,
Yeah,
senior
so
students?
we are, since Duquesne is going to keep their 7th graders again next year.
And the 8th.
And the 8th graders.
Right.
So what we're going to lose in enrollment is the seniors. So there's 44 seniors currently that will graduate. There's nobody going to be added from the bottom.
Right, because the 8th grade today is going to be 9th grade.
Right.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Understood. Any other questions?
Under athletic and activities, I know we have Mr. Stevenson here, and I know we had some questions about the uniform cycle and what sports are in need of new uniforms.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soul, Mr. Blazevich. Mr. Souls had asked me to come with our uniform cycle. It's a 4-year cycle for as long as I've been here. One of the reasons that I was told by my predecessors was every student that plays 4 years of a sport will get a new uniform during that 4 years. That's why that policy, or, I don't even know if it is a policy, but that's why that was put in place several years ago by the athletic directors before me. And we've stuck to that, for the most part. At the end of every season, each coach gets paperwork, end of season paperwork, to do their inventory. There's a box on there that says, are you in need of new uniforms or any replacements? As you know, most kids take their uniform home. Sometimes there are some mistakes that happen. We've had uniforms get washed with mom's lipstick in the washer or dryer, and the uniform that was white comes back pink. Some of that, needs replaced from time to time. For most part, most of the uniforms are in pretty good shape, and they do last 4 years. Problems we have with the softball and baseball lasting 4 years because they're sliding in dirt and carrying a lot of that with them. The pants rip on occasion because they're hitting the ground a lot. Football uniforms get reconditioned every week. That's part of the reconditioning. We put that in the budget. So if there's tears or rips, when we send them out and they get laundered, They replace the tears, numbers get pulled off sometimes. So those are pretty much, they stay intact, for the most part. But like I said, softball and baseball on a 4-year cycle is pretty tough because the pants, kids are always sliding, they're in the dirt, and they're gonna tear. The indoor sports, we should have no problems, like I said, unless there are some mistakes, and we've had that in the past. For this year coming up, I submitted to Mr. Esper a couple quotes. Football was last purchased by the district in 2017. So they are beyond the 4-year cycle. As you are aware, Coach Steele, when he came aboard, or you may not be aware, I'm sorry, acquired a grant from U.S. Steel and also the district attorney's office that supplemented half the cost. I believe the boosters covered half of that as well. So they did get new ones in 2019, but the district was last purchased them in 2017. So we're beyond 4 years on that purchase. Boys and girls basketball. Girls basketball were last purchased in 2016. Uniforms have remained in pretty good shape. So they were due for new uniforms in 2020. Last year, everyone knows the seasons were shorted, so they didn't have to wear them in as many games. Same for boys basketball, was last purchased in 2018. So we would be due for new ones this coming year, 2020, 2022, and 2023. And lastly, girls soccer, last purchased in 2018, so they would be due for new ones as well. Some of the boys track and some of the spring sports, as you are all aware, spring sports in 2020 was canceled. So boys track sort of didn't use them, girls track didn't use them, the softball and baseball, so they've extended their life, 1 more year. So we could carry that over to 2023. But I have any questions, Mrs. Ahern?
Do you know if the grant that Mr. Steele got is available again?
I'm not sure. I could ask him. I know he applies for the one with the district attorney's office every year. As far as U.S. Steel, I think that might have been a one-time thing. We come across those every once in a while because a lot of these Fortune 500 companies they have to, every so many years, according to their tax report, they have to give so much back to the local communities, being that we have the Urban Works in our district. I think they were required to give something. I know Mrs. Wells one time, we had something with Honda, remember with the Angel Cycles, they had to donate something for tax purposes. A few years back, we got like a side-by-side or something that we used at the stadium. That was more than a few years, but do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like the tax reasons. So I think the DA's one is available every year. We're not guaranteed to get that, but the U.S. Steel, that might have been like a once every 10 or 12 years thing.
Okay. It'd be good to try. If we
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, he's good at that, and he looks into a lot of avenues,
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Any other questions for Mr. Steele about the uniform cycle?
And also too, I want to add, we've never really, in my tenure here, we've never really purchased middle school uniforms. They always get the hand-me-downs. So when the varsity, like my varsity uniforms, if we get new ones, we're fortunate enough to get new ones, and it gets approved. My varsity uniforms would go to the 9th grade. The 9th grade would then go out to the middle school, because we do have a freshman basketball team. But
Do we have any size issues with that, Mr. Stevens?
sometimes, they're adjustable though. The middle school kids, obviously are a lot smaller, but when we purchased these 4 years ago, we got them through Century Sports, and times have changed. When I played, they used to wear shorts down to the middle of your calf. Now the kids, the styles have changed. So some of my kids are wearing shorts that I wore when I played in 1988, 89. So they're a lot higher now. So the styles have changed a lot, which is good because, my team, almost the whole team wears medium. I have one, kid that's pretty big, 6'6". So obviously he's wearing an extra large. But like I said, when I played in years previous, everyone wore the baggy stuff because Michael Jordan started that fad. Now, if you look at college teams and the high school teams, now everything's super skin tight. So we're running into, it's a good problem now to have, because now when we pass them down, they all fit. We don't have that issue anymore where the shorts are down to their ankles. So the fad has changed, so it worked in our favor this time.
Scott, you mentioned Century Sports. Is this where these uniforms are gonna come from?
Well, that's where we got the quotes from. Now, I think the only one, and Mr. Esper will be able to answer this, because I can't remember what, we have to go by to bid things out, or Christian might be able to answer this. I think the football are the only ones that exceed. So what they usually do is they can get the quotes. I mean, we have to require a couple of quotes. What's the amount, Joe? Is it over 10,000 or something like that?
You get 3 quotes over, I think it's 11.5 now this year.
Okay.
And then anything over, I think we're up to 22,000, we have to bid out publicly.
Usually, like the football and band uniforms are the only ones that ever exceed that 11,000, and everything else is usually kept under.
And I'm sure a lot of the local places are also on CoStarz for uniforms.
Yeah. And it all depends what style. I mean, Century Sports is the only Nike. Nike is a very unique company, whereas they do not allow just the average Joe to, sell their product. They have to be a wholesale distributor, and Century Sports is the one that's in Western PA. Now, there are more located throughout Pennsylvania, but Nike is one of the few that, because they are such world renowned, they do not allow just anybody, sell their stuff. You have to pay them to basically sell their stuff. So you have to buy like a license to be able to sell Nike equipment and products. They're Nike uniforms, so to speak. The equipment and stuff like that, I think, most of the retail stores, they're all covered under some certain window. The Nike stuff is pretty specific, so it's hard to find. And if you want that stuff, and let's face it, I mean, they're the best uniform going. I mean, they're most durable and they last the longest. I know Natalia's, which is located in McKeesport, they could do the Under Armour and the Adidas stuff. That's who they have agreements with. So, and also Russell Athletic, Natalia does as well. So it all depends. Basically, what the coaches like our baseball coach likes, the Under Armour stuff, or our basketball or football coach may like the Nike stuff. So, I mean, there's not too many of them out there. You have a lot of generic uniforms, but some of the stuff, you pay what you get what you pay for. Is basically what it is.
Just a quick question. So this replacement cycle, if you could get a new one or like an updated one, so we can see sort of like what we're getting 6 years out of, and then what we know we have to budget for 4 years from now. That way, it's a more, because I think this one makes sense. We just have to have 4 years.
So this one just says the last time they were purchased.
Right.
You're looking for one.
I'm looking for 2027.
Yeah, I have a new one that has the date, the ones for the new ones that should be purchased in what year.
And I think,
Well, Mr. Stevens, I'll work together. This is something we need to add to the applicant.
correct.
So this would be something that I talk to them.
And if you guys wish to, if you wish to change that cycle, and make it longer, I mean, most schools our size are going on a 4-year. Some of the, schools with a little bit more money, higher budgets, they go on an as-needed basis. I mean, it all depends. I mean, every district's different. I mean, it seems like some schools, I know TJ gets football uniforms every 2 years, but I mean, they've earned that right, I guess, because they're pretty successful. So McKeesport has an agreement with Under Armour. They're like one of 50 high schools in the country that sponsor them. Mr. Madden may be able to speak on their agreement, and if it's still intact, I don't know, but I know a few years back, Under Armour chose them as one of their signature schools because of their success as a football program. So they got, a lot of discounts. We're not there yet. Hopefully we get to that point sometime, but comes with winning and things like that. But, yeah, it is what it is, basically. Like I said, it's every 4 years. And most schools follow that model, that cycle.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's just disputing that, and I'm fine with that. I just think we just need to see sort of that played out over time.
And I just wanted to explain, because I do get questions about middle school stuff, and sometimes, I mean, not to say, but when I played here, the uniforms we were getting were 8 to 10 years old. So they keep getting passed down. And like I said, we have kids that don't turn them in. We do the obligation. I mean, some of the uniforms get taken home and you never see them back. I mean, one thing I do with mine, I don't let my kids take them home. I wash my own and I keep them that way. That's why they stay pretty pretty solid. If you look at mine, you wouldn't say that they're brand new. I'm not like patting myself on the back, but I've maintained, because my first year as a coach, I let the kids take them home. Cousin comes over who lives in another district and said, wow, those West Mifflin shorts are nice. Let me wear those to the swimming pool or whatever, and then I never see them again. And then the student has to pay the obligation or they don't get their diploma. So it's easier for me, being an employee, to just do it myself, and we collect them after every game. I wash them, I dry them, and then, it keeps them in good shape.
I mean, and there's another, sorry, I didn't harp on this, but I mean, if our middle school needs uniforms, then propose that.
Right.
Because I don't think sports are opposed to that, if it's
Sure.
reasonable.
Yeah, some of them,
We can
some of them
budget
get
it,
pretty beat up.
and it makes sense, I'm assuming some of these sports are maybe a little bit more rough on their uniforms, and then just wearing hand-me-downs that have been worn for 4 or 5 years doesn't maybe look the best. We want to put on the image that's, represents the district flag. That these students are going out to different communities and representing West Mifflin. So
And I don't believe that to be a stretch, Mr. President, as you can see from the documents Mr. Esper handed out. Mr. Stevenson's been under budget the last 2 years.
Right.
So I think that needs to be commended.
Yeah, so something to think about, don't be, if there's a need in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, if it's absolutely inherent, they're like pretty deplorable looking. I mean, obviously, we're gonna look into it. I base most of that off of our coaches though, and I try to tell them, if you feel that we need some or you're missing some, we've been pretty good at mixing and matching, but sometimes we do come up with some mismatched stuff, like our freshman team right now, they're wearing, a different top, and as long as it's the same color scheme, the shorts don't really go with the shirt. I'm the only one who usually notices, or their parents might notice, but we've made do a bit. Our kids are pretty resilient when it comes to that. I mean, as long as they're just happy to have the Titans or West Mifflin across their chest. So.
And just one other quick question, and I think I'll let you go. The counts, so 70 for football. We've just found out too that we're moving down in Parkway. Is 70 the right count? Is that the right number? Should we be looking at lowering that?
That's like a guesstimate. I mean, we try to go. Coach will go by what he has. We didn't finish with nearly 70 this year. I don't even know what we finished with, maybe in the 30s. So we just want to be prepared. And like I had said last month, or I think the month prior to that, what's going on now with athletic supplies is they're so hard. Like, that's why I talked to Mr. Esper. We need approval now to get them for next fall, or we're never going to have them. Only because with the COVID stuff and going through customs. Most of these uniforms are made, the Nike stuff, it's shipped from overseas. So to be safe, if we want them for next fall or next winter, we should probably order them now. But 70, those are just like guesses. I mean, we never know, how many we're going to have, how many are going to come out for the team. Some years are higher than others. Some classes are, more involved than others. So we try to judge it at 70 because that's like been an average of what we've been. And it's been a while since we've had 70 on our team, but if you only buy 50 and then you get stuck and then you have 50 of the kids come out.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, you got 8 kids without
sizes. I get all of that.
Yeah.
I just, if we're using 70 and 70 is the number from 20 years ago.
Right.
And maybe we need to
Drop it down.
Yeah, that's it.
I'd just like to say something on that, Mr. President. This year, been up for a little bit, since he's been here, the numbers are going to really increase a little bit this year because since he's been here, they have 19 8th graders coming up every day to work out. It's going to be 9th graders next year.
Great.
And we never had it. We may have 5, 6, maybe 7 of those kids. It's 19. And then we have, so he's going to be looking at, in the probably mid-50s with uniforms. That's about it. I kind of like to say.
Well, if I could, one thing that just popped in my head too, with football, and me and Mr. Souls have discussed this, and some of you may or may not know, position-wise, 70 also too has to be the number. You can't play a certain position on the interior line or on defense unless you're wearing a certain number. So if you're wearing a 50, you're pretty much, if you have a number from 50 to 59, you're pretty much, you have to play either a linebacker or an offensive lineman. 51, you can't play wide receiver with that. So there are rules. So that's another reason you have to have a pretty wide range of numbers, because football specifically now, they lessened they're not as strict as they were in the past. Now they're letting defensive tackles wear single digits, like they never used to be able to do that. So they're less than, not as strict as they used to be, but that's another reason why offensive players like quarterbacks have to wear between 1 and 19. They can't wear above 20, so that's another reason. But I'm sorry, I should have known that anyway, it just popped in my head.
And I have one more, let's say, even though this year coming in, it's one of the first times, but athletics is the only sport that generates revenue, and this year, athletics kind of brought in, this restaurant, somewhere around $60,000 a day.
It's approaching that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's coming in, so there's that influx of money there, that also to help you use to pay for the uniform, instead of as a budget or taxpayer.
Thank you, Mr. Uhas. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you.
Yes, I need approval from the committee to add the uniform cycle to the agenda. Excellent. Consider me for the whole thing, purchase of the site.
Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Mr. Uhas, are you okay with putting this on the agenda for next week?
Yes.
Mr. Mattis? Put the uniform cycle on the agenda for next week, sir.
Yeah. Under technology, we have one item, it is TSI Bill. This is the company who is giving our One Touch or our touchscreen interactive boards. They called last week, asking if we could pay half of what the manufacturing cost is due to the limit of getting parts, and they want to buy them in bulk. Although this was not the agreement we made, the agreement was we would pay as we go, as they were installed. However, we did approve the purchase. Now they're just asking to change the payment schedule. So I wanted to bring that to the committee's attention.
Would that change the delivery schedule as well? Would that change the delivery schedule as well? Delivery, like the day they arrive?
Now, this should hurry the process along a little quicker, because now they'll be able to buy all the parts at once. And then once they get half, they're gonna ask for the other half.
Now, originally, they were talking about starting to install at the beginning of February. I'm assuming that types in this have delayed that, correct?
Yeah, that is correct, that is correct. We were scheduled, hopefully next week, we were told, to start getting some of the 65-inch and then the 75-inch uniform.
Okay.
And these are being installed by the company, correct?
They are subcontracting that out to another company who actually came through and actually did a walkthrough. And they were actually asking for the schematics of each of the classrooms to know if they're going into a studded wall or a block wall and so forth.
That gives us a projected start date for installing. Do we have a projected end date?
We were gonna hope by the beginning of next school year.
Okay. Because it would be nice to have all of them installed before the next school year.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so do we need technology committee to make a motion or to approve putting this on the,
We already approved the purchase.
so it's just, it's just cut this check, okay.
Under education, Dr. Schulman, would you like to give the ELA curriculum update?
Yes, Mr. Souls. Mr. Souls and myself, we visited two different meetings. The first one was with Daniel Onifred, the Dean of Thousands, who is running a point for the K-5 ELA. They're going to come hopefully next month, or definitely the month after that, when they're all finished, but they have done some extensive research on different programs. One is sticking out as the leader of the pack for them right now. And they're being very diligent in looking through the technology piece, the remediation piece. Is there anything else that needs to be purchased along with this? So, they've done a very impressive job, and they invited Mr. Salzman down to just discuss some of the things that they've seen and talked about some other different programs why they didn't like it. So it was very educational, and I was very happy to see the time and effort they put into that. Immediately following that, we did go to the high school, spoke with Dr. Minford and also Melissa Fulmer. They're the ones that are picking the 6 through 12. Yeah, the route that they're looking to take at this point, not official, but the K to 5 will be together, and then the 6 through 12 will be together. Now, sometimes the 6 through 8 will go through the K through 5, but in this case, they found that the program that they're looking at kind of goes nice and smooth together. Once again, looking for ELA curriculum in textbooks at this time is different than what it was in the past, because you have to see, does this work with our schooling? Does this work with the power school? And everything else that we already have, with the compatibility. That's probably something that they didn't have to worry about years ago. But that's where they're at right now. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mrs.
Are
Amy.
are they looking at other districts that are using this?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they actually took a few tours. So
Do you know what districts they are?
one was Peters Township, one was West Jefferson Hills. Those were the two that come off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Solomon.
We're going to hope our English departments will be able to wrap up their reports and hopefully be ready to present to the board next month. We'd like to try to get this expedited so that we can get their materials here before the end of school. Next, in front of you, I gave you 2 copies of the 22-23 school calendar. You have option 1, which was the same that we talked about last month. And then we have option 2, which talks about a 2-hour early dismissal on the last Fridays of the month for professional development. In talking with the union leadership, they were receptive to the idea of trying this to remove 2 of the in-service days throughout the year and put those into the calendar as 2-hour dismissals. So students will be dismissed 2 hours early over eight months, which means 16 hours, which means 2 days of in-service. So the hours stay the same, but the days students will be in session will be 182 instead of 180.
Is their union still have to vote on this?
Don't give me their okay, they don't have to vote, I don't believe they have to vote on it, but if they approve and say they like it, then we'll go with it. But this was half of the battle with being confident that we're going to have our after-school program, so this doesn't become a hindrance on any parent having to worry about getting their child early, because we'll have the after-school program there to house those kids.
That's my concern about it. Is it how much of a burden it could be on the younger kids?
It won't be in it because we'll have the after-school program.
Thank you.
Just briefly, I'm looking at the days, the student days, 180 versus 182. And again, maybe I just haven't seen through here properly, but if you take 2 of the in-session days and turn those into 8 2-hour delays,
Early dismissal.
how do you end up with 180 versus, how do you go just from 180 to 182 if those 8 days were already full school days?
They work on average 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours, the house is 16 hours.
Okay, all right, still counts as a full day. Okay.
Yeah, they go by,
Got it, I got it.
I think they go by hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir, we have to have 900 hours elementary, 990 for secondary, but really it comes down to, as long as we're serving a lunch, it counts as a.
Okay. Which is all.
Some really great news, and I will Dr. Solomon chime in on this as well. Our cyber, in-house Titan Cyber Academy is now has more enrolled students than the outside cyber charter schools going outside the district. Right now, our in-house cyber school has 168 students compared to the 157 of the outside cyber. It actually changed when we just got a new one today, so we're just updating as we go. So we're really proud of that. Dr. Solomon, would you like to speak to that since you really spearheaded this?
Well, I'm thinking, Mr. Sills, I'd like to give a lot of credit to Dr. Plitka. Not only was, he jumped into this with both feet, he went out and made a lot of the phone calls. I mean, we communicated together to figure out the plan of how we wanted to attack this. But through his personality and his education, he was able to have some good conversations with individuals and show, some of the great accomplishments and quality education that's taking place in our cyber school. Along with the marketing of that, calling it the Titan Cyber, having, the t-shirt, the logo that goes with it. This was all stuff that reinforced to people that we were serious about taking us to the next level. And I think that that's been accomplished. It's a good day.
Any questions?
Any idea of the dollar amount that means back to the district?
Once the next billing cycle comes through from the outside, we will have a presentation by Dr. Plitka as to where we're at.
And just to clarify, that 157 of cyber and charter schools, that includes brick and mortar charter schools too, right? So those aren't all cyber students.
Correct. Out of that 150, I have a little baby ones, actually 157. 71 of those students are actually in a cyber school. The rest, 87, the rest of those are in a brick and mortar charter school, such as Propel and so forth.
So it's really 168 to 71.
Cyber to cyber, yes.
Cyber to cyber.
Last thing, I didn't have this on here, but just as an informational item, we will be attempting to write a grant for the 21st century. That is for the after-school program for the secondary students. And that is through the state, and that's a competitive grant that the district can get up to over a 5-year period, $400,000 a year for after-school and summer program. So that'll be something we will be going after. Dr. Sullivan and myself are in contact with a grant writer outside the district discussing this and also looking for another partner, community partner to assist in the personnel issues that come along with the after-school and summer program.
Like Noah's Ark.
Like Noah's Ark, yes. And that concludes my committee reports.
Thank you, Mr. Souls. Mrs. Costello, still Senate, did you want to do that you want to do that next week, I think, right?
I'm going to do it this week.
Okay.
Mr. Rice will be here next week to discuss
We don't want to steal his thunder.
renovations for Steel Center. And I have the strengthening the pathway to success forum will be held at Steel Center on Tuesday, March 8th at 6:30 p.m. with light refreshments, presentation, and tour. This is open to all of our sending district board members to provide them with the opportunity to tour the facility and see the areas of the building that are in need of repair. And then I have some students of the month. For December is Thomas Strausser for advertising and design, Ronald Carter Streeter for baking and pastry arts, Carmen Briegel for cosmetology, Haley Pattison for public safety. Student of the Month awards for January are Anthony Ragoza, advertising and design, Joshua Galasic, HVAC-refrigeration. Elijah Patterson, medical professions. The second quarter extra effort awards go to Jaden Colorado for carpentry, Jason Huntoon for electrical construction, Suzma Garoon for health assistant, Emily Lashik for public safety. And we would like to thank Kennywood Park for giving our students work-based learning co-op, which is Jason Huntoon for electrical and Tanner Hornbeck for building trains. That so ends my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Costello. 19, solicitors report.
Our report will be given in executive session.
Thank you, Mrs. Tabasco. Old business? New business? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Costello, second by Mr. Costello. Meeting adjourned.